Listen, welcome back to All Politics of Local America's number one political hip hop radio talk show. If y'all just tuning in now, all I can tell you, man, is you missed one hell of a mayor's forum. They were busy dropping signs as usual, and all I can tell you, man, there's a lot of cats who face keeping it, who actually fit keeping it black. But when you come to the mayor's forum, I mean, it don't get no blacker. So we want to say that you missed the mayor's forum. You missed one hell of a conversation. All I can tell you is go to Facebook, go to All Politics and Local WRNU Radio, and check it out. So listen, now y'all know that Asia Norton is in the building now.
Yeah.
And whenever she come to the show, she bring some heavyweights with her.
Okay.
And of course tonight is no different. She brought two heavyweights with her. And one of the things I said in the press release, I believe these two brothers are God blessed. I appreciate the work
Thank
that
you.
they do in the community, educating our young brothers and sisters, and of course, anybody who know, like the mayor was just saying about information, anybody who know about teaching, know that's not an easy job. It's not an easy
Absolutely.
profession.
That's right.
And I think that to have these two brothers in front of young people and for Asia to see the importance of that not only speaks to Asia's vision and her wisdom, and of course, y'all know what we think about Asia here. She is not only is she worth the weight, her weight in gold, but I think she's elevating the platinum. She keep coming up in here like this.
Nice.
You're gonna make me
Say
cry.
that.
You're gonna
Nice.
make me cry.
Even I heard the mayor say to you tonight. He said, "What's up, Ace? You got your own show now?" He said, "You doing things like that. See, people watching you, AJ, because you making it happen, girl." So listen, I wanna say without a doubt, it's not my show. Of course, it's hers. So I want to move it over and let her introduce her guest. Simply, I want to say to both of the brothers, I want to welcome y'all to All Politics of Local America's number
Thank
one
you. Thank you,
political
brother.
hip hop
Thank you.
radio talk
Thank you.
show.
Number one,
Thank you.
number one, number one.
Thank you.
So Ed just made me cry, y'all. And so every time a show begins, he always asks me, "Do you want me to open up?" I just want to let everyone know I can do it, but I would rather him do it
Why
because
not?
he has a
Absolutely.
certain zest to it,
Indeed.
and definitely learned so much. And so I always believe if I am a tribute to any greatness, it's only because I stand on the greatness of those who either come before me
Say that.
or those who are currently here.
Right.
And so I appreciate Ed. I appreciate my All Politics Are Local, and he gives me so much credit because he never stays in here with me because he feels like I can hold it down on my own. So thanks,
Nice.
Ed. I appreciate that. And so yes, welcome. Happy Friday. I'm such a kindergarten teacher. Happy Friday to you all. I have two phenomenal guests, but before I just have to give a shout out to my family. My grandfather, Robert Lee Bruin Jr., he passed away 3 years ago to cancer. And so I'm wearing a Brooklyn shirt, and I'm also wearing a Buffalo Soldier pin on to tribute in his memory. Brooklyn because he worked for the New York Telephone Company, and so he primarily worked out in Brooklyn. And he fought in the Korean War, and so at the time the military was segregated, and so he was a part of the cavalry that was assigned only for blacks, and they were named Buffalo Soldiers.
Wow.
And so I just wanted to give that shout out because people will see me wear a Brooklyn shirt and they're like, "But she from North, where's she
It's all
going?"
good.
And so that's the reason. And how fitting that on this day that my grandfather passed away 3 years ago, that I invite two phenomenal people who educate our children and black male educators. Whether it's here in the city of Newark or in the city of Jersey City,
Yeah.
no matter what.
Stand up.
And so yes, to the left of me, I have Corey Harris.
What's up, everybody?
Yes, and we have our history is really funny.
Yes.
Goes way back before we even met.
This is true.
And to the right of me, I have Louis Sears.
What's going on,
And
everybody?
we have connections through New Leaders Council.
Absolutely.
Yes,
Absolutely.
so I definitely want to give these two gentlemen an opportunity to give to let our listeners and our viewers just get a sense of a background in terms of how long you've been educating, and we'll kick this the show off. And so I'm not going to choose who goes
I'll
first.
let Corey go first. No, thank you, Asia. I appreciate that, and thank you to the show. for allowing this space and creating an opportunity for this narrative to persist.
Yes.
And I've been educating for 7 years now.
Yes.
And I'm still a novice and I'm still learning every day. And I actually started with the Children's Defense Fund. So shout out to Ella Baker and with Freedom School.
Okay, I did not know.
Yeah. And so that was an amazing experience. And that was kind of like what lit the fire within me to really do this work. And I said, I think there's more here for me. And so for a while, though, I worked in civic engagement, coordinator of HIV testing and counseling program. And but I just had an itch. And I was like, I think there's something else that I need to be doing. So I made a hard shift into education. And so I've had every position you can imagine, starting from a co-teacher and then being a social justice teacher, piloting a social justice program at the school that I currently work at. And now I'm the dean of students.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Nice.
Mr. Spears.
So I started my journey about 14 years ago. I started as a teacher 14 years ago. I started as a sixth grade inclusion math teacher.
Okay.
Then I moved into elementary school, K-5.
Wow.
And then I went to high school as a dean of discipline, and now I'm back in fifth grade.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow. So one thing you both have in common that's actually, for me, my experience being in schools and being a third generation teacher, and my mother, she's my mother was a teacher.
That's dope. Like, why didn't I know that?
My mother taught at Miller Street School, and she always worked with middle school, and so her grades was always like 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th. And my grandmother was a teacher at Alexander Street School, and she was a kindergarten teacher.
Shout out to kindergarten.
So, yes, Casey. Hey.
Really? No. Y'all can have that.
Well, but I think it's interesting that both of you, so we don't really see males in general
Absolutely.
in the elementary age.
Right.
And so to have two black male educators to have experiences as you both have in the K-5 realm, I think that's phenomenal. And so clearly not everyone feels excited
I hate
about
it. I'd rather high schoolers. It's like, K-5. It still feel very like babyish to me. You know what I mean? So it's like I like the high schools. Like go to class. I don't want to walk you to class. I want to, I want you to be independent.
I can think it's really funny when people see me interact with kids or based off of what they know about. Like, nah, son, you need to be in high school. You need to be on the collegiate level. But then when they see me with the babies, they're like, wait a minute, there's something here.
Yeah. Corey had he posted something a few years ago. It was actually my class, and I was bringing my class to your. I definitely want you to talk about the work that you do around social justice in the classroom. And so I was transitioning my students to his class, and he posted a picture later on that day, and one of the little girls in my one of my students, her barrette came out, and so she approached Corey and she said, "Hey, can you put my barrette in the back of my head?" And here he is, like
busy with the box braid. Like, all right, here we go. And then you got to wrap it around at the end before you snap it. I'm in there.
And so he was doing his thing, and so it's funny when people hear you say, people say, "No, you have to be in high school." I'm like, do you see him working with our students? Because he eats this. Oh, this is all him.
Absolutely.
But nonetheless, we all know that there's not a high representation of male educators in our nation, let alone black male educators at that. I actually just left a program hosted by my Brothers Keeper Newark and the Child Foundation just an hour or two ago, celebrating black male educators, not black male, but minority male educators here in the city of Newark, and saying, hey, we love you, we need you, we appreciate you. And so it's because of that event, it made me think of, hey, how about we continue with that theme? Because that is a topic that is getting more national attention. There's been grants being provided to schools of education and districts to have a pathway. And so we always hear about the school to prison pipeline, but what about the school to school pipeline?
Yes.
So there are more grants being provided and funding being provided to get more male educators that resemble the population into those classrooms.
That's important.
Yes. And so you say it's important. So my first introduction of a male educator was in the 5th grade, Mr. Eric Scruvins, and he actually, that class, he taught social studies. And it was the first time I ever ran for anything. He held classroom elections.
Oh, wow.
And so that was like the beginning of my
nice.
That's very nice.
Yes, fifth grade, Eric Scrubbins, Maple Avenue School, shout out
to Maple.
And so, but that's just the importance.
Mm-hmm.
And so I never had that experience any other time besides got to high school. In high school, they had like student government, student council, etc. But because my Black male teacher felt the need to expose his students, and this wasn't required by the district, it wasn't required by curriculum. It was something that he felt was important. And so why education? Out of all you both have college degrees. You both, I'm sure, whatever you wanted to do, you can do. And so how did you land in education? Why? And why do you stay, but what gives that fire of you staying? Because it gets hard out here in that classroom.
Take away, Lewis.
So I started teaching essentially to my cousins. Like, so I'm the oldest male of like 14 cousins.
Oh wow.
So like when our aunts, mothers all were playing pity pat in the kitchen with the smoke and the music playing, whatever, I had a group of kids teaching them, right? And I took them away from the smoke, took them away from that environment. They're screaming, whatever, having a good time, right? But it's like, I don't think that was conducive for young people. And I don't know where I got that from, right? Like, all right.
Because you're young.
I know, I'm young with them. I'm young like them, right? So the reality is I never liked cigarette smoke, right? So I'm like, I'm getting up out of here. All right, come in here, whatever. So I use them as my guinea pigs, right? Like, 1 + 1 is 3, or right? Yeah. So I don't know what type of grades they got early on, but I know for a fact that that started a passion back then. When I was in college. Really in high school, I did a bunch of internships at Fortune 500 companies, and I didn't like it. I did a bunch because I went to school for business and finance in high school.
Okay.
And I didn't like it at all.
Okay.
And then when I went to college, I'm like, I think I could be a teacher. And I started out as a sub. Loved it.
Where did you sub at?
In Jersey City.
Oh, so your career is in Jersey City.
That's genuinely
everything. I love
that's
it.
I did a year in Trenton as a school leader.
Okay.
So like a dean of students, if you will.
Okay.
I led the instructional dean. I was in charge of the math and the special education department in Trenton for a year, but my heart was in Jersey City.
That's right.
And so in conjunction with being a teacher, I decided that I needed to start a nonprofit for young men as well, right? So 2009, I lost my cousin to gun violence in Jersey City in the same projects that we grew up in, right? And so 2012, I just remember like just feeling like down about like losing him and not being able to provide an opportunity for him, that I'm a teacher, but I'm not necessarily, I wasn't able to stand in the gap for people in my family. So that was hard for me to swallow. So I ended up starting my nonprofit because I knew that, like my young men, I couldn't necessarily, and I think I want to talk to you a little about this, and we can talk about it now if you want. But like just being an educator in the classroom, it's hard for me to follow the curriculum, especially when I know like my kids aren't learning like that. Well, they're not learning from those types of resources, if you will, right? And so like I create my own atmosphere in the classroom, my own curriculum, all that good stuff, and that's how I ended up doing the after school thing. I wasn't getting paid for it or anything like that, anything. But then I started applying for city grants, state grants, all that good stuff. Now we're being funded by those things. And then recently, February, I said I needed my young people to have something tangible, and I created a book. I wrote a book, February 2019. And so this is a way that young people could know, like, you could grow up in the hood, but you don't have to stay here. You don't have to fall victim to it. But that you could be great.
Yeah.
Right? Absolutely. Oh, wait, I got you a copy of the book.
I need my book signed too.
I appreciate that. Wait, hold on for the next.
No. Open it and look at it.
There we go. I got mine in the car too, bro.
I got you, bro. Don't worry about it.
What's the name of your book?
You're the answer to the problem from the hood to Harvard and back again.
Oh, so that's something different. I definitely want to hit on the back again portion because just a few seconds ago, you say you don't have to stay here, but that's not the message that you're really sending. You're saying you don't have to keep emulating the projection of what the quote unquote hood is.
Absolutely.
You can change it.
Absolutely.
And so you could be a part of the change versus because I always did not like the expression of you need to leave, you
Right.
need to
No,
get out of
yes.
here.
Yeah.
Like, no, well,
Right.
if this is not your environment that you want to be in, then that's something different.
Right.
But if I'm a strong believer that whatever community poured into you, you need to pour
I
into
agree.
that community.
I agree.
And
Absolutely.
so I appreciated that back again portion
So,
very much so.
I do believe that there needs to be a level of like separation, right? When you talk about because how could you be different if you don't have different experiences and things like that? So the back again is very important, but definitely get out so that you can see other things, see how things are working and things like that, and then you bring what you've learned back to the community.
I agree with that 100%. So, Corey, in terms of your journey through the education realm, you kind of shared with us your background with the defense you said you were with, and then working with projects around HIV. And so, how did you land in education?
Sure. So for me, it was about equity and revenge. So I was like, our kids. So I think a quality education is our reasonable service, and I think it's our birthright. And when I think about food, when I think about water, when I think about air, I'm like, education should be right there too. Like it should be everyone's right to have a high level, high quality education. And so I said, okay, I need to be a part of that. I need to be a part of that experience. When I grew up here in Newark, I went to public school the entire time that I was here. And I learned a lot. And my lessons weren't only in the classroom, but a lot of those lessons were really around grit too.
Can you speak more on grit? We're educators, and so we might be very familiar with grit and being gritty. And so do you want to hit on what grit is?
Sure. So it's kind of something that you really can't put your hands on, but like no matter what comes before you, you have to find a way to persist through it, persist through struggle.
Resilience.
Right? Resilience. And it's the difference between the haves and the have-nots, and the people who make it and the people who don't. It's not necessarily the people who are intelligent or smart, but it's the people who are the most gritty. No matter what comes before me, whether I can unpack it or understand it or not, I'm not going to give up on it. I'm going to be tenacious. I'm going to be resilient. And I was like, you know what? These are concepts that I know that kids in this city have because that's the experience of living through North. You have to be gritty, right?
Yes.
And how beautiful will it be for you to be gritty and also have a high level education to go along with it? Like the world opens up to you in a brand new way. And I was like, I need to be a part of that experience. And even though I take nothing away from my experience growing up here and still working here, but there were also some educational gaps too. And by that I mean I've gone years in school without actually having a homeroom teacher, or I went months without actually having like a book that wasn't shared, and like, or I'll have an experience where it's just like, look, sit here, and as long as you do this ditto and be quiet, then like we're good,
That's right.
But I have to speak to the other side too. I also had teachers who went above and beyond, that called to my house, that followed up, that came to different things I was doing on the weekends too. So I had both, but I have to be honest, like some of those gaps that I had, they presented themselves again when I needed some of those skills that I did not have, either on the collegiate level or just living in life experiences. And I was just like, because I had grit, I can compensate in a gritty way for what I didn't have in an academic instructional way, right?
That makes
But
sense.
I'm just like, but kids should not have to live filling in those types of gaps, right? So I'm gonna be the gap filler in that way, So I'm just like, yo, I'm coming to the classroom, right? And this is about equity, and this is also about revenge. This is also about giving kids what I did not have, and not expecting someone else to do it, but saying, look, I'm going to take ownership for this problem, and I'm going to do it myself. And learning while doing, because sometimes I'm still not sure about what I'm doing, and I'm like, look, we're gonna figure this out together. Like, this is your problem, and this is my problem, but like we both working.
I always say that the best teachers are the best learners.
Mm-hmm.
And so if you feel as though you got it, then it's like then you are actually doing your students a disservice. And so because teaching, like any other profession, is a profession that you always have to keep growing and learning.
Absolutely.
And the moment that you feel as though that, I don't need anything else, then you are doing a disservice to all of your
Can I add to that, Asia?
Yes.
When I first started in this career, I thought that when kids raised their hands and when everyone had the right answer, I just felt so good. I was like, yo, this is like dope. Like they get it. They got it. Everybody's answering. And then I had this epiphany, right? And I had this push from a coach I had too. And it was just like, if everybody already knows it, then they're not learning.
That's right.
Where's the rigor, right?
Yeah.
I'm here for you asking questions that they don't know the answer to. And listen to the discourse. Listen to the conversation that comes from them not knowing the answer, and don't give it to them. Just facilitate the thinking.
Yep.
That changed my life. I was just like, okay, so I'm getting an observation right now. You looking at me. I want my kids to get it right. And they're like, I'm not here for your kids having the right answers. I'm here for hearing the discourse around the wrong answer and the critical thinking attached to it. And I was like, that's what we need to do as educators. Stop just looking for the right answer, but listen to the process, right?
And shout out to your coach for that, right? Because I didn't get that until like I was in my 7th year, 8th year into teaching, right? Where like they would really come in and just like, look, and if everyone raised their hand, they were good, right? I got stellar reviews. And so I thought I was killing it. But really, like, you know, like looking back, I'm like, damn, I wish I could do my first year over right now. You know what I mean?
Don't we all feel that way?
I'm like, yo, I would kill it, man.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean? And so like I hate the barometer or the standard that was created for us, you know, as teachers, because ultimately, right, give me an I, right? Because if that's an earnest NI, then I'll work towards it, right?
I'm sorry, what's the NI?
Oh, needs improvement.
Oh,
Sorry.
okay.
Sorry, thank you for that. You know, teachers, we have academics right? So give me needs improvement, at least it's earnest, right? And then I could work hard towards something. But like I never got like everything was like satisfactory. I had S's all the way through, right?
Okay.
And I felt good about it, but I don't think I was getting like 40% on the New Jersey ass, right? Like you're right. It's like so like I'm doing well. I put a smile on my leader's face, but like what I'm sending my kids back into the community not knowing anything.
Yeah.
How asinine is that?
Yeah. Sure. I want to point out and kind of like getting off topic, but still on topic in terms of what drove you both to education. The number one thing you did not say was money. There was passion, there was heart, there was conviction, there was I want to be the teacher that I needed someone to be. There was I need to give back and bring others people up, but it was never money. And so and that's sometimes hard. I think like for people members in our community, we all know that teachers, we will hopefully maybe one day we'll get paid what we're due. But right now that is not the case. And there's a lot of factors that contribute to that. But there's definitely a sense when it comes down to be a classroom teacher that is selfless. And so whether you have families or you don't, you take care of people. We all have student loans. Well, I got student loans.
Yeah, absolutely. I hate Sally Mae.
I'm trying to tell you.
All of them.
And so it's definitely it's a selfless profession, but we still wake up every single day because we see how it's not about us. It's not about how much money I have in my pocket. It's not about how much level of success. Even with how you describe, my students, all their hands are raised, but you still felt you received the feedback of, but you're not doing the justice that our students need. And I think in today's and the future of society is we don't need people who know how to complete tasks. We need people who can solve problems.
Exactly.
And so I guess your background as and not to necessarily put you in a box, but we all have, like me being a Black female, I have a perspective and I bring my perspective to the different areas that I go in, whether it be in the classroom, whether it's me being a mother, whether it's me being on the North Board of Education. I bring a perspective because I'm a Black female along with everything else. Sure. And so as Black men, how do you see your perception or perspective as a Black male, and how does that influence you as educators?
You know, it's really, I'm thinking about my personal life, right? So I'm 34, soon to be 35.
He old.
I'm telling you, right? And I was riding home one day.
Youngest one in the room right now.
I was riding home one day, right? And I was thinking about, I was like, at this point, there's certain things I would have thought I would have accomplished, right? Being married, having kids, right? And I was just kind of just going through this. I'm sitting at the red light, and I'm just like, wow, I'm not really on track in terms of like some of my personal goals. And it was a small, still voice in that moment. It was like, you say you don't have any kids, but you really have 550, right? And I was just like, whoa, look at the impact of that, right? And that, like, when I show up every day, and even when I don't show up, for some of these kids, like, I stand in as their dad.
Yeah.
I stand in as their older brother. I stand in as their uncle. You know, I stand in as their mentor. I stand in as that person who comes to their games, who comes to their birthday party, who they FaceTime, you know? And I was just like, whoa. And even their parents, you know, sometimes they'll reach out like, listen, I can't get to them, or I can't get to, like, they want to talk to you.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, whoa, you know? And then when you were talking about the money piece, right? Like, we can be rewarded and like enriched in so many different ways, right? So like I am, my spirit is wealthy because of the kids, you know? My spirit is wealthy. And like, I would be remiss if I didn't mention, like, I have also cried more than I have ever cried, like doing this work. It is the hardest thing I've ever done. Right. So even though there's rewards and there's gains, like this has literally been the hardest thing that I've ever had to do, you know, and I definitely want to, and I don't want that to discourage anybody from thinking about, you know, doing this work. But like, I remember just being like, yo, like, I'm not sure if I'm the person for this. Right. And then I would say, well, then who is?
Yeah. That is my motto. If not you, then who?
Yeah.
If not now, then
when?
when?
Yeah. Yeah.
And so that is very powerful. And to hear you speak of like that standing, and so we have to be honest. If we want progress, we have to be honest with ourselves and be realistic about our current state. And so some of our children may not have two-parent households. And so for you to be able to step in for that young man or even that young female, and they want to express their excitement or their sadness to someone, and for you to have that phone on and readily available, that's powerful. And so what do you think, has any Louis, has anyone ever come to you, a former student, because you said you've been in the game for how many years?
14.
Come on, brother. I told my age, tell yours. I was just kidding.
I'm 30-something.
And so, given the range of grades that you have taught, some of your students are probably either in college or graduated from college.
Yeah.
And so, have you ever had like an experience of people coming to you and just express how you just being physically there has impacted them?
Yeah, absolutely. So this is the thing, right? As teachers, naturally, I believe, even like, and I'm going to say this on air, but please, teachers, don't get upset with me, right? But like, even like the worst teachers in a building have certain relationships with like certain kids, right? So just the fact that you are present, you're consistent every day, there's something about that experience that, you know, that would draw a kid to you or not, right? So yes, I've had that, but I don't know if. So let me just say this.
Okay.
I've devoted my entire life to education, right? And I'll probably devote the rest of my life to it, right? And I served in that capacity where you're talking, Corey, like, games, all that good stuff. But now I'm married, right, with a child of my own. And my wife is about to have another baby, right?
Congratulations, brother.
I don't know how that happens. I gotta stop being so nice.
That's what's up, bro.
Thank you. But and so like my priorities have to be weighted.
Sure.
Right. Sure. And so like as a husband, as a father, I would hate for my family to feel like they're second fiddle to anything, right? Let alone like my profession, right? And so like I'm still there, giving my nonprofit and all that good stuff. But I have to serve in a different capacity, and I'm very when I'm there, I'm intent because that's the time that I have.
Yeah.
Right. And then when I'm not there all the way.
Fair, bro.
I'm disconnected, right?
That's fair.
And so like creating those systems so that I don't have the burnout, right? Because although
that's a real thing.
So
That is a real thing.
You're broke and you're burned out. Right?
How about it?
So
wait, we laughing. That is so
It's
sad.
real though, right?
We laughing, but
It's
so
real
sad.
though, right? And so like when you say selfless, right? And I believe that that's the job, but I also believe that you're practicing malpractice if you're not taking care of yourself, right? So you need the therapy, you need those self systems that like.
Wait, I'm sorry. Can you just repeat what you said about self care? Because sometimes when we say self care, we always think about, are you eating right? Are you getting enough sleep?
Right.
Are you going to the gym? Are you exercising? But you said, what was the first thing that you said about self care?
Therapy.
Yeah.
So this is the reality, right? As a teacher, I was talking to my wife about that on the way here, right? So I'm gonna tell you guys a real story, and then I'm gonna bring it all together because I'm a storyteller apparently, right?
Teacher?
Okay.
And author,
Teacher?
right?
Yeah, teacher. That's what
Yeah,
teachers
yeah.
do.
So yesterday my wife was stuck at work. She gets off of work at 7, but there was an irate parent, and the parent threatened like the whole staff, right? And so
Your wife is the teacher too?
no, I'm sorry, my wife is a pediatrician. She works
okay.
at never mind.
Yeah.
So,
Say
never mind. She works in Newark, right?
Got
And
it.
so she's from Newark. She works in Newark, and I'm from
Okay.
Jersey City. I work in Jersey City, so that was something important that we did, right? All right. So so she was stuck at work. She gets up at 7 o'clock. She didn't get up until 8:30 last night. And she had pieced the parent and all that good stuff. The IRA parent. So I said to her, it's interesting that you experienced that one time, right? And you may experience it here, like once every quarter, probably, right? But the fact of the matter is that as teachers, we have to deal with like those types of things daily.
Say that, bro.
Right?
Say that.
So like, if you're not, those are traumatic experiences.
Absolutely.
Man. I'm not saying that they're holding you hostage in a room or anything like that, right? But when you're dealing with different personalities, different children, and their abilities and their disability, right? So right, their disabilities, and so like if you're not taking care of yourself in terms of having that outlet, right? The therapeutic piece, the self systems in terms of like I have to go to the movies once a week, right? Just so that I could like disconnect from the world and like be in my own zone or whatever, right? On Tuesdays, AMC's $5.
Yo, bro, Wednesdays, foot reflexology, $30 for an hour. I give you the plug. I'm always in there. So I understand.
You were giving these places free advertising.
Oh, my fault. I know.
I ain't saying the name.
I'm just saying.
I did though. I did. My fault.
My fault.
That's real, man. All right, take that off. Nah, but I do those things so that I could be my whole self in front of my kids, and so that's part of it as well.
Yeah, for a Black man, that was very. Thank you for being vulnerable to all of us about that, because that's something that doesn't get really talked about in the Black community as a whole, but I think definitely amongst Black men as well. And so, thank you.
And let me give context to it.
Okay.
So I'm in front of children every day, and like as I'm teaching, I'm getting anxiety attacks. Right, so I would have to sit down and sit on the side because I'm overwhelmed. I'm doing after school programs. I'm doing lunch duty.
You're doing a lot.
I'm doing right.
Books.
Yeah.
Right.
I know it's crazy, right? So it's like I'm doing a bunch of things and I'm having anxiety. Like thinking about doing my lesson plans on Sunday nights. I'm doing them with the anxiety, right?
Yeah.
And so like I'm like, yo, what the heck is? And it's like where it stops me in my tracks, man. And I'm just like on my tracks. I'm sorry. And I'm there like, yo, like what's happening? I didn't understand what was happening. Like my heart was beating all fast.
Oh, wow.
I had to I went to the doctor like 2 or 3 times, and they're like, yo, you're fine. Go back home.
There, bro.
I'm like, what?
No, I'm not.
You know what I mean? Like, yo, right? You know what I mean? And
Right.
so like I was like, yo, there's something. And then one of my friends recommended therapy. And that was one of the best things that ever happened for me.
Good.
One of the best things. Yeah.
That's amazing.
Wow.
That's
I'm curious if you've ever had this experience, both Lewis and Asia. There's kids that I thought like just wasn't checking for me, right? Like I didn't have like the relationship that I wanted with them or whatever. And it's like you want to reach everybody, but literally you can't. Like sometimes it's like, me and that kid just really don't vibe. Like I'm not really like, and I'll just store it in the back of my mind. But what's really interesting for me is like my absence sometimes from the school for whatever reason makes certain kids more present that I didn't think were checking for me, right? So like I'll be out and when I come back, I've had kids over the years say to me like, you weren't here last Thursday. And I'm like, you don't say anything to me when you see me day to day.
That's right.
Like nothing at all. And it's like, nope, you weren't here Thursday. And then the week before that, like you could have happened on Monday. And I'm like, yo, and I started to think a little bit more about who those kids are. Right. I'm just like, you don't present in a way that there's like a relationship here, but you name it when I'm not.
Yeah. I had a story. My 3rd year teaching, I had a student, Jade, and Jade, she gave me a run for my money. She gave me a run, but I think she didn't. I didn't think she was checking for me, as she said. And so, but one day we were teaching what is a fact and what is an opinion. And so she said, "Well, Miss Norton likes chocolate." And so I do like chocolate. It's like it's in my addiction. It's okay. But I in my opinion, I don't think I was very forthcoming about it. Like, I like chocolate, like running around, like candy bars, like in my hair or anything. And so, and I was like, oh, that's interesting. And then, so whatever fact you have to prove it. What is your evidence? And then she was like, well, I know Ms. Norton likes chocolate because she's always eating chocolate. And again, I'm like, how is she noticing these things about me? And I don't think she necessarily gravitated toward me. I didn't think she necessarily was fond of me. I think we got a teacher-student relationship. But I influenced her. And so, and that made me very conscious of how I present myself and the messages that I send to my students without even knowing I'm sending as well. And so I know particularly for like, but even for my Black son, the messages I'm sending to him as his mother, like he's out in the hallway, out and about, but he asks, Mom, what meetings do we have to go to? And so he's like, in his head, it's like, what important work do we have to do today? Also, side note, he hustled me because for every meeting that we go to, he gets 50 cents.
How about it? Why not?
Smart man. Why not? It's like, y'all can get $2 today, right?
Seriously, he's like, so how's my dollar going? But it's like the messages that we're sending without us knowing that we're sending. And so they're checking for you in terms of if you're present at work or not. But when you're there, what are the things that they notice about you? Your style, your etiquette, your word choice. First of all, I never knew that when things have like focus, US, and it's a plural, put an I right there. He taught me that.
I remember that. I knew exactly what you were saying.
I was like,
wait, what is it?
I was like, why do you think folk guy? He's like,
I was like, octopus, octopi, cactus, cacti.
But going back to, I know there's gaps in my education.
Right.
Gaps, right? Come
There's
on.
a reason for everything.
That's all another thing, right? Gaps in my education. That's gonna be my book, bro. I'm gonna write that name right now. Gaps in my education.
That's
right.
But in terms of how you're speaking, so if I'm picking that up as an adult, how are your students picking up? And so when you're just talking, they're saying, oh, but he's saying it this way, but I said it like this. Let me say it like, because they're looking up to you too. Let me piggyback what's going on over here.
You know what I noticed too, Asia, to where we're at right now? A big thing, an unspoken truth, and our kids and our community is they value consistency.
Oh, yes.
And they might not necessarily have the language to say that that's what they're checking for, but that's really what it is. Like, are you going to continue to show up? Right?
Real, bro.
Are you going to continue? Are you going to leave? And they might not say it in that way. But let's face it, right? We have kids that come from two-parent households. I didn't grow up in a two-parent household. I know Lewis, you didn't either because I was reading the book. But without them actually explicitly asking the question, it's really at the heart of it is consistency. You built this relationship with me, and will you forfeit it? And will you go and not name when you were leaving or why you left? And the funny thing about, even though I've been in the same building for 7 years and I've had 3 different positions, I noticed something this year that I was just like, whoa, many of the kids are coming up to me because last year I taught social justice. Last 2 years I taught social justice. And now I'm the Dean of Students and Families. And I just made the transition, kept it moving. Okay, let me see what I'm going to do for kids in this capacity. What I did not take into account, there are so many kids that have walked up to me and said, when are we going to your class though? Why aren't you teaching your class anymore? And when it became kid 5, 6, 7, 8, I was like, yo, there was a misstep here.
Absolutely.
How dare you? I grew up in a single parent household. If my mom, who has always been my mom, and I come next day and then she decides that like I'm gonna be the superintendent of the building, I'm just gonna be like, wait, hold on. Like every day when I come in at 3 o'clock, you have food, ready for me. I have my materials here to start my homework. We have a routine going. I'm gonna come tomorrow at 3, and you need to still be doing what you've always historically done for me. And when I made the shift, but didn't explicitly name it for the kids, they had trouble wrapping their brains around it. And I was just like, whoa, how inconsiderate, right? Not in a bad, it wasn't how inconsiderate and how insensitive, right? And then again, those kids that I didn't know that were checking was like, yo, that's messed up. Like, I really liked your class. You're not teaching it. And I'm just like, you ain't doing nothing. I used to fight with you every day. But that consistency is huge. And the way that we build trust with our kids is to be present every day. And the way that they know us to be present. And if something changes, we have to consider them in that decision too.
I like that.
Yeah.
And so you kind of related that, or you made a connection to that in terms of like the family and the consistency of family. But it's also in terms of schools. Let's be honest. Sometimes the schools that we work in have high teacher turnover.
Yes.
And so the students, they're like, oh, you're only going to be gone next year anyway. Or you might be gone by the end of
That's
this
true.
month.
That's true.
And so to have someone that's consistently there, it's like, okay, this is our comfort.
Right.
I'm comfortable now because that's what it's also about.
Yeah.
You're safe when you are, even when, let's say you walk to work every day, you see the same people, you get a little bit more relaxed because that's your people.
Right.
You see them all the time.
Absolutely.
And so our children, when they are in schools that have high teacher turnovers, they're never able to get comfortable
Yes.
and to be just being willing to, you know what, I'm having this problem, because they're never developing that relationship with people. And they might be able to develop that relationship with their peers, but they're children too, and so they need guidance.
Absolutely.
And so they can get guidance from their peers, of course. But adults are important too, like that.
Absolutely.
And so I think, because my mother actually, one year she was thinking about leaving a building. She felt as though it wasn't the best environment for her. Again, my mother's a teacher, and she felt as though it wasn't the best environment for her. And the reason why she stayed, because she overheard her students like the day before or in the past, and they were saying how, oh, this teacher was only here for like 2 months, and then they just disappeared, and that was on her heart. She was like, I can't leave them because like they're gonna feel that I'm gonna abandon them too. This is me, Mom. It's all about you.
And the language of it though, like, and they disappeared.
Yes,
Like, people don't disappear,
they don't.
right? Like, but they do. But like,
But yeah,
but what is the implication of that, right? Like, you were here and you disappeared.
yeah.
So that was a prevalent conversation at when I worked in Trenton at the charter school. But in my traditional public setting, we didn't really talk about that. Like, in terms of leaving, a lot of the teachers who were in the building itself, they had staying. They were there for like a decade, decade and some change, right? So I was there for about 4 years, and I was the youngest one. Like, you know what I mean? I was the youngest one who like had the least amount of tenure, basically.
Okay.
But at a charter school, someone was there 4 years, and they're like, "Yo, you're
the oldest one there.
Yeah,
You got the most amount of
So
years.
the conversation that I have at in the traditional public sector is really about like, are you going to keep your word, right? So like, and this is, I'm speaking in general. This is not really like the case by case situation, right? Yeah. But in the traditional public school, teachers have the autonomy to do what they do in their particular classroom, right? Like in the charter sector, it's typically like universal like symbols and universal like codes and whatever, right? And so like a kid will tell you like, man, we don't do that in Mr. Spears class. They don't make us do that, you know what I mean? Or like, yo, you said last week that if we did X, Y, Z, that you would give us a pizza party. Where's the pizza party? You know what I mean? So it's really not about like, are you going to be here? But it's like, I think that's taken for granted, if you will. But definitely like, yo, are you a man of your word? And that's how you size you up.
Yeah, that's a good point, bro.
They size you up.
That's a good point. Yeah. They will remember, like, they might have kids like, you won't recall this math strategy. Like, you remember what I told you on Monday. And they will hawk you down.
Right.
Like, oh, you told me you was going to get X, Y, Z from me, and you better do it.
Yeah, and you have to appreciate that too, because it's
Absolutely.
like accountability.
Sure.
It's like you are holding me accountable.
Absolutely. I started teaching when I was 21, right? So I was a kid, like, you know what I mean? And it's like, yo, they grew me up. Like, for real, I'm grateful, even as a teacher. I mean, even as a dad now, right? I'm grateful for my years as a teacher, because like some of my friends who weren't like in education field, and their parents, they have a more difficult transition becoming parents. I think for me as a teacher, I'm like, use your inside voice. You know what I mean? It's like I'm using the tactics. So, you know what I'm saying? You know what I mean? So, right.
But because of that reason, I'm like Godfather of the Year. Like, I'm gonna get them like, yo, Corey, like, he just know what to do, whatever. We sit there like, yeah, you know what I mean? Like,
that's right.
Taking all the stuff from the classroom.
That's right.
Absolutely. That's really funny.
I have a question in terms of, because I get it all the time. I sent it last show. I had Janelle Payne on. She's one of our teachers. Yes. She's one of my former teaching partner.
Nice.
They still work in the same building together. But I send her pictures all the time. I see my students in the community all the time. And they stalk me down.
Yeah.
They're like, Miss Norton. I'm like, oh my God.
Right.
No. Goodbye. Stop.
Right.
But they love it.
Absolutely.
They love,
I love it too. Yeah.
So it's the same for y'all. Well, instead of, because you just said how you go out to like their events, but if you're just like grocery shopping,
I love it. I love all of that. Yeah.
Like, I'm giving free advertisement again. KFC in East Orange on Central Avenue. I'm in there. And then she's like, Mr. Harris? And it wasn't even the kid, it was the parent. I'm trying to get my $5 box.
Right.
And I'm like, we start taking selfies. I mean, we got the KFC backdrop in the back. I'm like, no, come in. Look, but the funny, like, I looked at the picture and didn't like it. It was like, nah, you got to do it again. And it was like, oh, you really want to take this picture? And I was like, yeah, like, it ain't for you no more, it's for me. And I'm posting it too, you know what I mean? But like, I live for that. Sesame Place. I was at Sesame Place with my goddaughter. And then one of my second graders, I remember her from kindergarten. She's still at my school.
Okay.
She's taking a picture in front of the Elmo backdrop, and her mom's taking it, and I just slid in. And she did a double take, like, who is this grown man? Right. And it's like, oh, Mr. Harris. And I'm like, look, we had Sesame Place too, you know? And we were hanging out for like the next hour, you know? So I live for those moments because they humanize you to kids, you know? Because like, some kids think that we're some type of deity, right?
Yeah.
Like you don't live here, like you're not from here, like you don't do the same type of things I do. And the moment they see us in the community, they're like, yo, no way. And I'm like, when I used to see my teachers in community, that was like the best thing in the world.
I had the same teachers from 6th to 8th grade. And my math teacher, she lived on in Jersey City. Okay. And so I would see her randomly. Like, and those
you
are the best moments.
Streets too.
No, I ain't doing none of that. Nope, I ain't getting nobody nothing. She still lives there, so I don't want to. But I love those opportunities because then you saw how human they were, right? Yeah. Like when I saw that, like my teachers will go to a funeral or like just anything that made them look human. I really connected to them.
Yeah.
Right? Can I bring up something?
Go ahead.
You brought up you said something about the whole like who's this grown man in the picture, right? So like I as a teacher, right? So when I first started teaching, they're like, you can't hug on those kids. You can't right. So I made it a habit, like when I was walking in the hallway with two lines on both sides, a line on both sides of me, I would walk with my arms behind my back, and because that's how they taught me basically, right? That's how I was indoctrinated, if you will, right? Or like if I kept a kid after school, like I had to like, either be in the hallway while that kid was in the classroom or keep more than one, right? So like I would be like, why are you sitting like that? You got detention too. Right, just I ain't gonna sit in the hallway, so you know what I mean. So those are things that we were taught to do as black male teachers, not just black male, but male teachers in general, because just the thought of being in a conspiracy, anything, right? That like controversial, whatever, that's scary to me.
Too funny. When I interview, I'll never forget this. So
for a teaching position.
Okay. And the person from Human Resources, there was a school principal and it was a person from Human Resources. And I appreciated just how straightforward this sister was. At the same time, I was just like, oh. She said, she was like, as a black man, why are you interested in working with small children?
Oh, wow.
And I appreciated the boldness there. And I was just like, I'm pretty sure that if I was a female, be it black or not, that question probably wouldn't have been there, right?
But honestly, as a black female educator, I've never been asked that question.
You've never been asked that question?
Like, why do I want, like, as a black, it's a difference between why do you want to become a teacher versus as a black woman, why do you want to become a teacher? It's a difference.
And why do you want to work with small children? And I was just like, whoa. And I'm just like, listen, if answering this question helps to build your comfortability about me being sincere about the work that I want to do and protecting them at the same time, I will cheerfully answer it because we have the same thing in mind, protecting and educating small children. But the actual answer was like, I was actually a little lucky, I guess. I had two black male teachers in the elementary, middle school tenure. So 6th grade, Mr. Sneed. And 7th grade, Mr. Morse, Ronald Morse. Shout out to Ronald Morse. He's still doing working in education. I gave him hell, by the way. I did, and I found him a few years ago just to say thank you. So shout out to him.
Or apologize, me.
You know, and apologize, like, bro, like, and it took him a moment to remember me. It took him a moment to remember, and I was actually pretty happy because I'm like, yo, bro, I gave you so much hell that like the moment you saw me, you should have been like, oh, nah, I remember this cat, right? But to that point, I was just like, how awesome is it for kids to start their educational journey with having a Black male there from the very beginning? Like, you don't have to wait to high school, or you don't have to wait to college or go into some type of trade school, but like the narrative has changed already. Like, I taught kindergarten first. And so I'm just like, yo, my kid, the first day of school, they see a Black man. That dispels it right away. You know what I'm saying? I was just like, you know, I'm here for that. Like, because now we can talk about being balanced, right? Being balanced and being whole. Like, we could never, ever be women, or namely Black women, and they can never be us.
That's right.
Right? And the work that we do, we have to do it together.
I don't want to be y'all. I just want to let y'all know that I like being Black women.
You know, but I love it when people in the building come to me like, yo, I need a male teacher, like Mr. Harris, where you at? Or just shout out to the other bros in the building too. Because there's actually quite a few Black bros in my building too. I gotta say, yo, shout out to Life Academy, man. We got quite a few like Black male teachers, yo. And like, it's pretty dope.
And teachers. I'm not talking about like other things, other roles, but other teachers. And so I just got the signal. We got to wrap up a little bit.
This was so much fun.
I know. It's good stuff. It's good stuff. And as any conversation that we hold in our personal lives and professional lives, it's either the start or the continuation.
Absolutely.
And so if we don't, and so again, thank you for my family here at All Politics Are Local that kind of let me do my own thing, but allows a platform to be presented to bring about things of this sort. And so there are two other hosts, Bashir Muhammad and Jonathan Austin, who are also teachers here in the city of New York, who have been pouring their hearts and energy into our families, our communities for years. And so to have two brothers, I know you're in a high school, but you have experience in elementary and the middle school. And so that definitely speaks to power. And so thank you so much for sharing just a part of your journey. And so if you want to do a quick plug of your book real quick, if we're going to make money for someone, let it be our community.
Yes, please, brother, please.
So, if you are going on Barnes & Noble, the book is available. You're the Answer to the Problem, from the hood to Harvard and back again.
It's good, John. It's good.
Yeah, I'm really excited about this project, and I'm available for anybody who would like to work with me.
Yeah, go ahead.
If I just want to say, like, I appreciate the space that you carved out, Asia, to really have this conversation and inviting us here. I have to mention that in all of the work that we do, I'm glad to do it, and it's what I'm supposed to be doing.
Absolutely.
I'm not doing these kids a favor; they're doing me one, and their parents are too. And I appreciate them entrusting me and entrusting us to be in front of them every day. So it's really thanks to them. It's an honor and it's a privilege, and I would be remiss if I didn't mention
Well,
that.
before you take the headphones off, so it's not something that we receive. It's not only a giving, it's a receiving. So it's definitely a two-way street. So thank you so much, Corey, for pointing that out. And so, true to All Politics Are Local, I have to ask you both this question. It's my favorite question because I have people from I have people that range in different age and time periods, etc. But and so, who is your favorite rap artist or rap group?
Oh, wow.
I can't wait to hear. What they thinking? They're thinking hard.
Yeah, it's actually pretty tough for me.
These educated brothers.
I mean, I can't just say one, man. Like,
okay, well, just how in a multiple choice question, you might think it might be several answers.
But like one. D could be like all the above, though. Like, you know what I mean?
No, we don't got to D.
No. So I have to plug in my young men. I told you guys that I have a nonprofit, Kismet of Kings, and particularly they put me on like the younger guys, the NBA, whomever, all those people, right? But Meek Mill, I will have to give Meek Mill the the award right here, only because of his transformation. Right, so like he early on, like in his early works, he talked about I am meek, I am murder. Right, he identified himself. So imagine the mindset that he had at that moment, right? But then he's talking about like reform, justice reform, and all that good stuff. So sorry, jail reform and all that good stuff. So definitely Meek Mill at this point, and I have to give a shout out to my young men for putting me on.
Okay,
Yeah.
nice. That's definitely a high school teacher right there.
This is pretty tough for me. I'm like a neo soul type.
Exactly.
So,
man,
like, I don't really buy like a whole bunch of albums in terms of rap, but I love '90s rap. I love '90s hip hop.
Oh, don't worry,
you can't say that in the classroom, man. They gonna call you, oh, what's
like,
up?
So,
what is it?
But I'm somewhere between. And there's certain albums I like too, but I'm gonna go. Common is my dude.
Okay.
All right.
I really like the B album. Like there was something there that I thought was super dope. Old Kanye. Let me clearly make the distinction because there was something between intellect, talent, and style, and just like changing the narrative a little bit, but distinctively old Kanye. We got to shout out Wu-Tang, and I'm definitely gonna say the Fugees, right? Like the Fugees, like
you're a first.
like love. I'm here. So in terms of group, we gotta go with the Fugees.
Okay, nice. And so thank you all again, Lewis, Corey, for being my guest. It was literally short notice.
Thank you for having me.
And I appreciate you brothers coming in.
I owe you. So anything that you ask me to do, I got you.
So you don't owe me nothing. I got a nice little book.
She saved me with NLC, but we'll talk about that.
That's what's up.
Yes, and so thank you again for all of our listeners for listening. And so, can you come on and close us out? I just want him on the same airwave as I am.
Nice.
Go ahead.
Nice.
Well, obviously, we want to definitely thank the two brothers for coming in and doing the show. We appreciate y'all, and of course, I think that's big what you just said. That as it relates to you being honored to teach them children, man. So I think that is amazing on both of y'all part. I can remember, man, being in Dr. Gunther's class, almost 30 years ago.
Wow.
And he asked all of us to become teachers.
Wow.
And he had said that, the importance of black men becoming teachers and being in front of young people. I didn't answer the call, man. A couple of my friends did, but you two did.
Yeah.
And so, I have tremendous amount of respect for both of y'all for having done that, man, because, I think, like he said, it's important for them brothers to see y'all, not only to see y'all examples, but understand the price that y'all both pay every day to walk in there as black men. Because I think every day that we walk the planet as brothers, we understand that we got to count the cost.
Yeah,
right.
Absolutely.
So I mean, I appreciate what y'all do, man, and thank y'all for answering the invite by Asia and coming through. And know that look, man, anytime y'all want to come here, man, y'all welcome to come. This is community radio.
Thank you, brother.
So ain't no telling who y'all gonna see. Y'all come up in here.
This is true.
Y'all already walked up in here and y'all saw the mayor. So I don't think you get no bigger and blacker than that.
That's right.
So ain't no telling who y'all gonna come and see. So anytime y'all want to come, even if y'all just want to come by, man, and just hang out, man.
Chat it up.
The green room is just as packed. So we say thank you to both of y'all.
Thank you, brother.
Right.
Thank you for having
me. And thank you, Asia. For coming in and doing your thing.
Good job, Asia.
So, folks, y'all listening to All Politics and Local, America's number one political hip hop radio talk show.